Hi, welcome to episode 4 of Sony Alpha Classroom course on color grading. I'm Naveen Shetty, and in today's episode is all about real-world color grading. In this session, I'll be grading different scenes live, walking you through my decision-making process and the technical consideration that comes into each scenario. Each of these cases presents a unique challenge that colorists face daily, implementing client feedbacks, working within the multicam workflow, and ensuring the final deliveries meet broadcast and professional output standard. Let's begin. So this session is about cameras, different cameras being used in ads or features, but primarily we are going to see today in an ad commercial, it's an Enfield ad where two different cameras has been used and how we can incorporate them in our grading session. Let me show you some footages which was shot on a Venice and red. How we ultimately brought it together and made it look like one space. As you know that Sony Venice and Red has a different color gamut. These two shots, one was shot on a Sony Venice and this one was shot on the Red. And there's 2-3 different approaches where we can take it. Like normally I do is I grade from the log as you have told in the previous session. But in this, as it's a different camera setup, there's two ways to look at it. Rather than going to log space, probably I use CST of Sony. This is the settings what we try to do in input color space. We keep it as S gamut pre-cine and the input gamma should be S log 3 and the output color space should be Rec 709. And for commercials, I normally work on a gamma 2.2. So this is one way to work, and the same way probably in Red, we can design our own CST, and probably the settings for that input color space is wide gamut RGB and input gamma is red gamma 4 and output is Rec 709, again the 2.2 gamma settings. This is the other way to work. But normally for this film, I approached it in a very different way. Is I didn't go through this color space, I went through ACES. Normally when there is multi-camera setup, ACES helps you get a wider gamut for all the cameras and it can incorporate all the different cameras into that settings. So ideally, I prefer working on a ACES in such situation. And so I set up the whole pipeline for ACES by going ACES 1.3 and S709, and then I set it to the whole timeline, those aspects of it. And then I start my grading because both are in that ACES color space. It already has a color contrast and the black and white contrast. So probably for me is balancing it to one level. And very interesting in this ad, what I had got from a feedback from the director who was himself a DP for this film. He had done a lot in the camera itself. So he told me I need a brown feel to this ad film and very low contrast. So it becomes easier when you have a reference with you and the DP and the director has shot it to that level, and bringing both the cameras to the same color space was a bit easier. But you see the difference. What comes out is the green, how it behaves differently over here and here. So this is where, as a colorist, you need to try balancing and matching in such a way that you get that seamless feel to it. After balancing it and using your LUTs and looks, and you don't really come to know that it's from a different camera basically. Ultimately, other than lensing and all that stuff, but it's quite visible. But generally, with Resolve grading into taking into ACES, and probably you got a seamless grading palette. This is how multi-camera setup can work by creating two different setups, one working on a CST of individual cameras or working on an ACES workflow. In feature film and web series grading, it's a long process. You spend a lot of time on a narrative, on a storytelling. One of the film which I recently graded, it's Mehta Boys. It's been shot by Krish Makija, directed by Boman Irani. And this was a very simple, true to the life, a relation between a father and son. We need to keep more real, with a good contrast. We can play with the contrast, play with the depth, but let's not treat it too much. And this film was shot on a Sony Venice. So the way that it was lit, also like father starts like a very finicky guy, very irritable. So his sort of a lighting was a bit more towards a warmer, more desat sort of a space where he's very boring and his life, it's lifeless. And the son, on the other hand, is a very talented architect, but again very shy. So these were the brief which was given to me, and he's cool. He's not confident but still cool. So the lighting also was done in that space basically. So I had to treat it very real. And by the way, I graded this film on a base light, but right now the session which we are having, I bought it back on a DaVinci Resolve. So in this whole process, I'll explain you how I approached these scenes on a Resolve. So this is more like a more contrasty raw image, which we worked on an ACES workflow. So I neutralized it, and then I had, as usual, we have a sort of a tree which I explained in episode 1 how I define each exposure, saturations, high dynamic range separately on each nodes, and I go individually and grade it separately. And this is where my white point needs to be, my blacks needs to be. As this is a little contrasty image, I open up my blacks and make it a little softer. And here I am. So from here, this is more like a starting point for me, which I graded for this film. And then you use your secondary tools like a masking, shaping up the face and all, and building up depending on the scene. And more importantly, this had a lot of grays, so you had to see that your grays don't have any sort of a cast, because grays you really get to know that there's the reds or blues or so it had to look very neutral. And when you balance it and get to neutral level, you get that little bit of whiteness to the whole image basically, and that was the look of my film. So this is the second scene, which is very interesting for me. This was shot with a lot of good contrast and good warmth in the whole scene. And the tube light was also having that sort of separation, like a cold in this whole warm ambience. And we wanted to go as a warm tone. But Bowman had a very interesting point that this character is now trying to be sober, and let's go towards a very neutral feel. But still, because the way it's being shot, it was shot with a lot of warm light, a tungsten light. So when you keep it neutral also, it'll start looking like a warmth neutral feel basically. So it was one of the scenes which we saw it very differently when me and Krish were grading, and Woman stepped in, and his approach to the storytelling was so different that it really helped to bring some sort of a separation in the whole scene. So this sequence is very interesting because this is a sequence where father and son come together, and father is trying to get into the son's shoes and build up a relation with him. the way it's being shot, it had all the character of a good contrast, but again, it being a very gloomy sequences, we had to make it a little softer and not cold, but still have the presence of cold. Keep in mind that whenever you're grading a feature film, the narration is different. The narration is more of a storytelling for a long format. And when you're grading a music video or advertising, you need to create an impact. That can be for a 3-minute or for a 30-second ad, 60-second ad. It's just more of an impact creation.
Color grading isn't just about making an image look beautiful. It's about balancing creative vision with technical precision. Each project presents unique challenge, and a colorist's role is to solve them efficiently while maintaining artistic intent. Whether it is refining a grade based on feedback, managing multi-camera sources, or ensuring broadcast compliances. Mastering this workflow is essential to delivering professional result. In the next episode, I'll talk to you about how to achieve high-end results using smart grading technique. Until then, keep sharing your work with us using the hashtag LearnWithSony.